The cost of renting has hit a new record high. The average across the country is now more than 600.
Let's talk rent price increases. Anyone who lives in New York City, doesn't live in New York City, lives in a completely different area, what your rent increase.
I just got told that my rent is going up by $100 a week. And I live alone, and
So I need to come up with $4,000 by April 20th in order to secure a cheaper apartment that I'm looking into. They want $250 per cap.
Rent prices are skyrocketing. People on TikTok are sharing their horror stories about outrageous rent increases and terrible landlords. This is the 7th part of our Going Homeless series. Let's dive into the world of rental and see what's really going on. And yeah, one more thing, subscribe or economy will collapse.
So our rent's going up by $300 a month. Like, we live in a normal ass looking apartment. Like, there's nothing fancy about it. Okay? When I moved here in August of 2018, we were paying $1,900 a month. And now they want us to pay $2,500, citing, building improvements and renovations and repairs and property taxes and water bills and all this other stuff. Oh, and inflation. Yeah, that's another one too. And it's crazy because like all the people that live in this building are all just like working class people. They're just working class people. Just people working, trying to do their thing, I called them. I called the property manager to talk to the office manager, to talk to everybody, right? And one of the things that they told me was, so you want us to lower your rent? Why? And it's incredible because it's like they don't see all the people that live in this building as people. They see them as numbers. They see them as numbers on a spreadsheet, which is lovely, I guess. I'm just tired, man. I'm just tired of not being valued, of all of us not being valued as human beings, as people with feelings and, a desire for hope and a desire for I just don't know. I'd like, something's got to change. Something's got to give, because like we're all stuck in this loop. Like, I'm valuable. I know I'm valuable. I have a lot to offer. I speak 3 goddamn fucking languages. I'm not an idiot. I mean, sometimes, yes. But like, for the most part, no. I'm a very educated person. Just because I don't have money, I have no value to you. Because I don't have a big fat bank account, I have no value to you. Something's got to change, man. Something's got to change. And, I hope at least wherever you're at and wherever you're watching this from, and you're doing good. And you're doing well. And you're being taken care of.
I don't know if you know this, but there is a reason behind these high ass rents. Before I get into it, like, follow, share, tag someone who may need to see this. Look, the FBI just raided Cortland Management in Atlanta for rent fixing. What is rent fixing? Well, basically, they've been fixing rents on this pretty much system called LRO through RealPage. And so let me explain what LRO is. Basically, it's basically a lease rents optimizer. Basically, Archstone Smith was a major company back in the early 2000s that created this system, and so it made the pricing of rents go up and down daily like the stock market. And so basically a lot of these property management software companies had incorporated this type of software. So you might call on an apartment complex one day and the rent may be roughly $2,000, and then the next day it may be $2,150, because it depends on the daily market. So now Biden has decided to probe these companies, and these companies have been rent fixing. So now the FBI is starting to raid a lot of corporate offices, thus beginning to show that there has been a rent fixing scheme. And that is why our rents are so high. So You know, it's ridiculous, especially out here in California, whereas I entered my apartment at $18.95 and I'm now paying $2,500, even though the market rent for my apartment right now is $2,900. And if I wanted to get a 2-bedroom apartment in my area, in my building actually, is roughly running between $3,900 and $4,000 a month now. Which when I entered the building, the apartments were going, 2 bedrooms were going for about $2,500. So there you go, rent fixing. This is ridiculous how these corporations are taking advantage of us to squeeze us dry. And I'm letting you know, they're talking about tax these corporations. You cannot tax these corporations because these corporations are in a trust structure. So, like I said, if you want to consult with me about trust or property management or rentals or whatever, I have a link in my bio, Snowy Consulting and Media, and you can definitely hit me up through there.
I would have to disagree that $2,100 a month is damn cheap. And a lot of people have commented this, but it's just not true. So I'm going to explain why. The national average salary in the United States right now is $59,000, and $59,000 after taxes, your take home every month is about $3,800. So if you are a household or a single person living off of that one salary, that rent right there is more than half of what you're making. And that's just the average. So of course there's going to be people that are well below the average who cannot even afford a $2,100 rent that you guys are saying is cheap. Now, I'm not ungrateful at all. I'm blessed that we are able to afford this $2,100 of rent, which we got at this rate because we moved during COVID, during the height in 2020. We moved there in 2020 during the height of COVID, and they were having a really good deal because they were desperate to get people in. Now, unfortunately, that rent is about $3,000, but why are we normalizing? Why are we normalizing $2,100 a month of rent as being cheap when the majority of people in the United States don't even make enough to afford this type of rent? So many people have roommates. So many people who are families and have multiple children are living in an apartment instead of living in a house, which is what we are saving for. We're never going to own this apartment. We're all just throwing our money away, renting instead of buying. We have no buying power right now as millennials and as Gen Zers. Why aren't we able to afford to buy things like the generations before us did? How come we're the ones that are screwed? I was born and raised in California. It's not going to be possible for me to buy a home here because the average price of houses here, and these are old houses, like 1950s houses, is about $700,000. I thought I made decent money. Last year was the most I ever made, right? I thought that we would be able to afford a house. We're not going to be able to afford a house that's almost $1 million. It's just not going to happen. So I understand people saying $2,100 is cheap. It's not cheap. It's cheaper than other places, but we are all of us are being overcharged for rent. And these houses are insanely expensive. And there's like no chance of most people ever even being able to afford to buy a house in their lifetime. That's sad.
I am upset. Okay. So I got home, got my mail, got my rent increase notice. It's going up to $2,500. I'm a single dad with 3 kids. $2,500. What are you going to do with this money? You've done nothing in 10 years. The bathroom heater still doesn't work. I asked multiple times for better insulation in the walls because the electric bill's insane. There's still a tree waiting to fall and kill us all. Nothing has been done to this house in 10 years. And I can't paint the walls. I can't do any of the regular maintenance because that violates the lease. But you're not doing it. My original goal when I moved into this house 10 years ago at $1,495, that's now going to be $2,500, was to buy my own house and get out from under this landlord crap. Instead, I've paid the enormity of somebody else's mortgage. I paid that. And they've done nothing. All that they did was have the down payment and the credit rating. That's all they did. They signed the papers. I moved into the house immediately. They've done nothing. I can't keep doing this alone. And apparently I can't seem to find the right thing to do it with someone. What is the answer? Should we just start robbing banks at random to pay landlords? This is stupid. This is why people are angry at the system. My landlord is not even like some equity company. It's some lady who decided to move to Costa Rica because, you know, she couldn't handle the fucking Republican government being Republicans. But she's so liberal, she squeezes her tenant every year. Squeezes. Fuck you.
I don't know about anybody else, but for 2025, I'm locking in on my apartment, okay? I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying home. I'm tired of paying these high prices rent. I'm over it. I'm locking in my place. That's it. I will make a gem in a little corner somewhere. I will read. I will watch me 1,000 movies before I continue to go outside. There's nothing outside for me. I'm tired of paying rent. I'm over it. Then they got the nerve to go up 4% every year. Like how? Why?
Okay, let's talk about rents in Ontario, because I've heard enough out of people about rents being so high. If you sit for a minute and think for a second about what the housing market has been doing in a while, and when you say, this is ridiculous, rents are too high, it's just like having a mortgage, I might as well get a mortgage. Then get a mortgage. See, what people fail to realize is somebody bought that house and is renting it out to you. If the house costs $1 million and they had to put $300,000 of their own money down and the mortgage payment is still $4,000 and they rent it to you for $4,700, they're not making $700. They have taxes and insurance and maintenance. So if you were to buy that property, it would probably cost you $4,700 a month, but you'd need $300,000 down to do it. So to think that a landlord should just give you a rental amount lower or much lower than their mortgage is costing them is ludicrous. So everybody's complaining about how landlords are such snakes because the rents are so high. Newsflash, they didn't say what the rent should be. They're covering their costs. And I'm saying this, of course, as a landlord and having people say your rents are too high. If my rent is too high, please go buy the house yourself. You can save up the money and you can buy the house yourself. But the rents that I charge are barely breaking even. In fact, in one of my rental properties, I'm losing about $400 a month. In another rental property, I'm losing about $600 a month. This is not a woe is me. This is just facts. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that is the cost now of housing. And so when interest rates go through the roof, where I was making $200 a month, I'm now losing $600 a month. I'm not calling that tenant and saying they need to pay me more because the law state I can't, and I wouldn't. If you have a problem with the rents, the only advice I can say to you is move to a place that is cheaper. There is no other way to do it, and I apologize if that sounds cruel, but the facts are life is expensive, mortgages are expensive, rents are expensive. It is what it is. If you are on the off chance you've been in a house for 10 years and the landlord can't get you out, I promise you that landlord is fuming because they can't get you out, and you're living in a great spot with a low rent, then hang on to it as long as you can. But at the end of the day, rents are high because mortgages and costs of living are higher. It's that simple.
So we've just had our first people come round to view our flat. We currently pay £935 a month for our one bed flat, and the estate agent has just come in and they're putting it up to £1,200. That's not including bills or council tax. That's just revolting. Like, it's not a big flat, like it's not small, but it's not £1,200 for a one bed flat excluding bills, I think is mental. God, I'm so glad that I'm not having to find a new place to live in the UK. Jesus.
Let's talk rent price increases. Anyone who lives in New York City, doesn't live in New York City, lives in a completely different area, what your rent increase is like every year, because I'm actually moving out of this apartment after living here for 2 years. But the first year that we lived here in a 2-bedroom flex 3 in New York City, our total rent was $5,500. We split it on room size, things like that. But then when we renewed for our second year, they tried to raise our rent to $6,000, which I know doesn't seem like a ton for New York. I've heard of thousands of dollars in terms of increases, but I'm curious to see, because I've seen videos in Boston of increases. Our salaries aren't increasing by that much. Obviously, if you get a promotion, great. But I almost feel like there's a cap out for every industry, basically. So if our rent keeps going up, how are we going to afford that? I made a choice living in an apartment, not owning anything yet. But all my money's just going down the drain. Again, a decision that I chose to make. But I'm curious to hear what your increase is, where you live, what that looks like, and how you go about negotiating any potential increase. Because New York City is so expensive. Some of the apartments that I'm looking at are triple the price that they were a year or even 2 years ago. I feel like eventually in like 5 years, I'm not going to be able to afford to live anywhere. I'm sure we all do. It's just crazy. The more I think about it, the more I'm just like, I'm basically making the same amount that I made last year. And my rent's just going up.
I just got told that my rent is going up by $100 a week. And I live alone, and it already went up by $50 with what feels like it was 6 months ago, but I checked it wasn't. It was 12 months ago. And I basically have 2 weeks to figure out what I'm doing. And I just don't even know what to do. Like, obviously everyone is going through this rental crisis at the moment, but I don't understand. I swear only a few months ago they were complaining about how there's too many apartments in Brisbane, but yet why is there not one single fucking apartment for someone who just wants to live on their own and have a car park? Why is that so impossible? And like, I checked the average salary for Brisbane, and my salary is a little bit higher than that. And even I can't find somewhere that's going to be even slightly livable after paying tax and HECS. Anyway, just wanted to see how we're all doing, if anyone else is in the same boat, because I'm so angry. I've lived here for 2 years in the same apartment, and I love living here, and the thought of leaving is really depressing. So, cool.
The cost of renting has hit a new record high. The average across the country is now more than $600 a week. The latest data from CoreLogic indicates there's been a rapid rise in the population since the end of 2022. Fewer people living together in share accommodation has also contributed to a significant rise in prices. The most expensive place to rent is Sydney, followed by Canberra, then Perth.